One. So hey, Kim Dang, welcome to the show. And did I pronounce that right? Kim Dang?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Awesome, awesome. So Kim, you're a freelance film producer in the New York area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. And so if you don't mind, give us a little introduction of who you are, what you do, what you've been up to recently.
I am a Swiss film producer, freelance film producer, or assistant to film producers based in New York City. I am of Vietnamese heritage, but I work mostly on American film and TV productions.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
So
what I've been doing.
okay. So how have you been impacted? What are some projects that you've been trying to pull off in the last 3 to 6 months, I guess.
So one thing that we managed to finish when it comes to shooting, that was a little short film I produced with a Swiss filmmaker who is based in New York as well. It's called Esther in Wonderland, and she's now in Switzerland. She got stranded there because of the closed borders. And we're doing a post-production in Greece remotely. These are my friends. It's an amazing Greek post house called DCS, or Digital Cinema Services. They did, for example, The Lobster. They're really good friends with Yorgos Lanthimos. So that's what we're doing and navigating. And it's easier than I thought because the Greek post house, they're used to work remotely. So, and I've worked with them before, we know each other, and so the coordination is a little bit easier than I thought it would be. Luckily, we finished the shoot way before the lockdown, otherwise, I don't know what we would do. We're almost picture locked. So this is kind of slowly going. Of course, everyone is responding in a less timely manner, including me. But, you know, it's going. And then I was on a HBO miniseries. On that one, I'm the assistant to the line producer, who is my friend as well. We worked together on the last big project called I Know This Much Is True, that just aired on HBO a couple of weeks ago. So we were in prep for another show with David Mondell as creator and director. He created Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm and Veep. So that was an exciting thing to be on, but we were in prep when the lockdown came. So we're all on hold right now. From time to time, I get some new script versions or help setting up a meeting because all of these union conversations between HBO and the producers and Local 52 and all the unions. So that's what I'm doing, but honestly, I don't have much to do otherwise. So I'm reading scripts, I'm trying to figure out, you know, how else we can work in these times. So I was talking to a lot of people around the world. Since I'm Swiss and I'm also very familiar with the European film world, and I have a lot of friends in Europe, but also Asia. So I've been talking to them and see how does it work at the moment in Greece, for example? How does it work in Italy? How does it work in Switzerland? And it seems like for a skeleton crew, a lot of productions are back on. I mean, here in the US, a lot of skeleton crews are back on as well, but only for commercials, which is non-union, and that's a little bit easier to navigate. But yes, so I'm kind of trying to get an understanding what everyone else is doing in the world to see what where I want to stand and what I can do in this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky trying to figure out the production hacks and figure out, a workaround. Maybe something's teleworking or how to minimalize your cast and crew so that you have that, that safe social distancing and that and those all those safety measures met. And the smaller the cast, the smaller the crew, the more safer, the set's going to be.
Yes.
And
But
yeah, go ahead.
but then again, there are some productions that you can't keep it concise. You can't keep it as a skeleton crew. Like
Yeah.
imagine a political TV show with a scene in front of the White House with a lot of audience background, demonstrators.
Yeah.
Like, how do you want to shoot something like that? So I was talking to some Chinese producers the other day who are a little bit more tech enthusiast.
Sure.
So they were talking about these LED techniques where you use lumen, and I probably don't even know what I'm talking about, but it's basically the same technique that they used in Skywalker Studios for Star Wars, where you have like 360-degree screens where you basically go with the second unit and scan the environment or the background even, or and then you put it on those screens, and then you have just a few main actors and maybe a few backgrounds right there in the studio on stage. That seems to be pretty controllable, but then there's this whole tech world that seems very crazy, and very few of us work like this. But maybe that's the way, that's an option to go.
Sure. And I think a lot of it has to do with maybe rewrites. Like you said, political drama, absolutely. But you could change a lot of the scenes to say, instead of out in front of the White House with demonstrators, you've got the president and, his cabinet, maybe just the president and two members of his cabinet, arguing or whatever. And it's all sound effects. It's all the screaming outside. And that's all, ADR, that's all Foley sound. That's all sound effects. Using found footage. You can use news footage and kind of, juxtapose, the president maybe watching the news, and how on CNN it says at the bottom, outside White House, demonstrators, blah blah blah. But that could be footage, bought courtesy of Reuters, or and there's all these different little ways of working around.
But then it also opens a whole entire branch of the filmmaking, in a sense of all the database of footage, as you say, like where to buy it. And also it sounds kind of futuristic, but also when it comes down to props, digital props that you put on the screen or in background, or all these things, like we've that's all coming from the game industry. Gamers are really used to that. So the boyfriend of my sister, he's a huge gamer, and he's also in IT. So I've talked to him and tried to make him make money with me. It seems like a joke to me, because this is, in my eyes, this is so far from, the filmmaking I'm used to, about taking a camera, like a couple of friends, and go into the streets and steal shots. And or maybe that's the way to go again, after all the big productions, like back to student films.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think I had a previous guest on that said, we've progressed 10 years in 10 weeks, and this was, some months ago. And so maybe it's been, we progressed 20 years. We progressed 20 years in 20 weeks. And the virtual conferences, that's one big avenue that I'm excelling at right now, is virtual conferences, virtual concerts, DJs doing a lot of virtual stuff. Obviously, we're utilizing Zoom. We're utilizing Zoom and Google Meet here on the podcast. So,
Yep.
doing a lot of podcasts and those sort of things, and kind of, just jumping into the whole virtual thing. And so, soon it's going to be virtual reality. Virtual reality has been around for a while, and now that's just really kicking it off. And I think we're still going to need the human factor. We're going to need human voiceover artists. We're going to need humans in front of the green screen for that human performance, because me and some colleagues were talking about, we're still waiting on that AI, completely produced AI movie with just AI drawing up scenes, drawing up action, drawing up vehicles and the characters and the acting.
Yeah. It's funny. It comes back. It also includes, for example, thinking about cartoons in like maybe producing more cartoons, or AI. I don't know. It's interesting because before I became a film producer, I was a mathematician. That's actually my education. I used to be a assistant professor at Yale for applied mathematics.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why I changed into film was I studied film science as well when I was at the university in Switzerland. But I just recently really full-time switched into film, or recently, a couple of years ago. And the reason why I made that switch was because I get such a kick of being on set with all those people, right? With hundreds of people who everyone is doing their thing, and somehow this whole project comes together and something amazing happens. And then you see the product on TV or in movie theaters. I just love being on set with all those people. And if after COVID, if we go back and this is not gonna be the same, then I don't even know what I'm gonna do next, because that was kind of the deal I made with myself, right?
No, no, go ahead.
No, talking about AI and huge database and footage and doing it more in a technical way. It just gives me an impression to be back in science and academia. And I'm gonna roll with whatever comes, but it's just not something that I expected to happen when I changed my career.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I do a lot of acting, and I do a lot of crew work, and a lot of assistant directing, producing, production coordinating, and production manager, and things of that nature, and a lot of assistant camera work. And on top of that, a lot of acting. I'm always playing a cop or a military role, and you're right. There's nothing beats just being on a different set in a different location and getting dressed up, in something different, or just being in a random courthouse, or at a random baseball field, or some historical site, or the 55th floor of some skyscraper shooting something, dangerous or whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of the adrenaline you live for.
Yeah, and it's almost, it's not like it is the travel. There's travel involved, and there's sightseeing, and there's just meeting, new people, interacting with strange new people. And when I say strange, I mean strange in a good way.
Yeah.
And just and just the networking in general is just something fun to do. But I couldn't agree with you more, in the sense that that's why I left some of the jobs, some of the TV and film, the TV and news jobs, because I didn't want to be stuck in the same studio. I didn't want to be stuck behind a desk. That's why I went freelance, is so that I was bouncing from set to set, from gig to gig. I've been a freelancer for a little over 10 years now, and just even the uncertainty of what the next gig is, and I've been blessed to where I have a resume. I have a network to where I've stayed employed this whole time, but there is kind of like an adrenaline rush to, you know, being a gig worker, to being a freelancer, and just bouncing from one show to the
Absolutely.
next to it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I totally agree. And I was thinking about this whole travel thing, you know, because this is something I love so much. I maybe the travel will stay on because we need to be more flexible when it comes to where we can film. Depending on where it
Hmm.
flares up again, right? Where the virus flares up again, we probably need to anticipate a couple of years to come that it will come back and then disappear again, and it comes in waves. Depending on the location, it probably doesn't happen at the same time. But what I think is just, yeah, we need to be flexible as of, you know, if Oklahoma is, for example, a hotspot right now, can we do it maybe in the Hudson Valley, or can we just move entirely to Europe, which is a lot of production companies are doing it right now, that shift everything to Europe. And in that sense, the travel will happen maybe more um, concentrated, and for a longer period of time you dislocate for a longer period of time instead of just hopping from one place to the other.
Hmm.
um, but I hope that it will stay on. This would be a real bummer because this is what I kind of live for and this is my lifestyle. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it is unfortunate that um, this hit so fast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
incredibly fast.
and it's only getting worse. And on top of that, you know, we've had so much else going on in the country that has caused people, um, and I think it's great, but it's caused people to unite, and you know, all the protests and all this and all the gatherings. But it's unfortunate that the result of that, the downside of that, has been, you know, mutation after mutation, and you know, the COVID is just getting worse and worse, and and it's spreading faster, and the numbers are rising, and so now we have to revert. And me and my wife have said numerous times
Yeah.
that, you know, whatever they're predicting, multiply it by 1.5.
Yeah.
And so,
um
yeah.
Actually, my sister is a medical doctor. She said they are, if you have a number of new infections, you as a doctor you kind of multiply by 4.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's so many asymptotic people,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that,
So that's
yeah.
a good point. So that, I mean, you know, as far as the whole quarantine and the whole, you know, sheltering in place, maybe we just bump it up to multiplying it by 2. You know, if they say, you know, one more year, we're going to plan for 2 more years of it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, that's a
Um,
good point.
yeah, yeah.
And if they say 2 more, we're just going to plan for 4. And if they're saying 6, we're not going to plan for 12. If they say 6, that's when we'll kind of like maybe ease back to 1.5. Okay, if they're saying 6, maybe 9 or 10.
No, but this is,
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about that, I totally agree that we need to be a little bit more realistic. I mean, already when they said in March that we might be back working in June, like that's not gonna happen.
Not
Everyone knows. But you know, you sometimes say things just to calm people down,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
just not the right thing to do. And that, yeah, because ultimately you have to tell the truth. And but yeah, so planning ahead so many years, it gives me at least kind of, it forces me to really think broader. You know, it's not like, oh, how it will be on a US production here on ground, but it forces me also to think, well, how is the rest of the world like dealing with it? Like, where else can we film? Like, do we have to shoot in the US, for example, for this production? And it's it's kind of making people think more global, I believe.
Yeah. Hmm.
But then again, it's a very difficult time, honestly.
Well, how would you say you've been impacted personally?
Um, Say again.
How, personally, friends, family, just you, not professionally and not business wise, not work wise, but how have you been impacted, personally?
Um, so my family is all right, thank God. Even though my sister is a medical doctor, she lives in Switzerland. She works in Lausanne, which is one of the biggest hospitals in Switzerland, and it was pretty close to the Italian border. So they were swamped for a while. My other sister, she's a chemist, but she can work from home and she teaches a little bit too. And so that can all happen by Zoom. And my parents, they're trying to stay as isolated as they can, like
Hmm.
hopefully a lot of older people. Um, of course, we all know here in New York, it was a while very scary. The numbers were very high. So obviously, I know people who were in ICU, people who died, like thankfully not very close people to myself. But I have, of course, friends whose grandparents died, and it's just like a wave of bad news that happened for a
Yeah.
while. But personally, obviously, I would have never wished for this situation to happen, but I just try to make the best out of it by staying in, staying safe, reading a lot, watching a lot, films that I haven't been able to watch for a while. I write a lot. I catch up with my friends in Switzerland or around the world, with my family, with my friends, of per Zoom or by phone call. And I haven't been able to do that for a very long time. So that's kind of something beautiful. And meditation, and like just try to stay calm and be ready for what's coming next.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Um,
you mentioned you've been reading and watching a lot. Is there a film or a series that stands out in your mind that really blew you away?
well, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but maybe not. But I think the show we did, I Know This Much Is True, directed by Derek Cianfrance, came out pretty well. And it's like, I have friends texting me, random friends I haven't heard from a while, texting me how much the show impacted them or affected them, and I think I'm pretty proud of what we've done. Yeah, I hope
Okay.
that Mark Ruffalo is getting an Emmy nomination.
I Know This Much Is True.
Yes,
Is that a show
it's
or
a
a
it's a
film?
limited series. It's a show,
Limit.
6 episodes. It's based on Wally Lamb's book called I Know This Much Is True.
Okay.
Hmm.
And what's that on? Hulu,
It's on
Netflix?
HBO.
Oh, HBO. Okay. All right. Awesome. Yeah, I know this much is true. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I just watched The Old Guard with
Oh
Charlize
yeah, me
Theron.
too. I watched that too. What did you
In-
think?
Incredible. I loved it. I loved it. And I see Netflix is just scooping up all these different graphic novels and trying to
Yeah.
adapt all these graphic novels. And I have to say, The Last Days of American Crime, had it been an hour shorter, that would have been good. But I thought it
Now
was a bit.
sure.
Yeah, it was a 2.5 hour movie, and I thought it was just a bit too long, a little too much. But The Old Guard was just fantastic.
You
What a
have a
unique.
military background, right? Was
I do,
that
yeah.
was that why you were so captivated by it?
Yeah, I kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, absolutely, and I'm definitely interested in those sort of things. And I thought it was definitely a unique story, and I like how they're just building a lot of female heroic characters, leads, heroic
Mhm.
leads, female heroic leads, and just the progression of the story, where I don't want to spoil too much,
No,
but
no, I watched it. But
yeah,
yeah, for the viewers, I get
yeah,
it.
I don't want to spoil too much for the viewers, but just the twist after twist after twist, really, it wasn't too much, but
Mm,
it just built. Man, I don't know how to talk. I don't know what to say without spoiling it, but it really captivated me.
yeah.
And of course, there's that supernatural element to it. I was always a fan of Highlander, so I thought, maybe they were going to have some sort of tie-in with the Highlander series, the Highlander movies. Are you familiar with those, the Highlanders?
No, not really.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, you should
But
check them out.
wait, was that with who's playing the Highlander?
Christopher
Christopher
Lambert.
Lambert? Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Christopher
Yep.
Lambert.
So
Yeah.
he was in the first 3 or 4 movies. Then they did a series, and believe
Yeah.
it or not, I think the series with Adrian Paul, had a much more fan following than the movies.
Mhm.
But the first movie and the series were fantastic, and I thought how they played around with history, and they kind of delved into historical events and how it tied into the supernatural element of immortals. But yeah, I thought the old guard was just timed right. It was spaced right. It was just
I
beautifully
I have
acted.
to admit, I thought it was very brutal. I had to stop it at some point
Oh
because
yeah,
it got so violent, and I was kind of shocked by the violence, which is strange because obviously every one of us is so used to violence these
yeah.
days that I was like, yeah, this is really rough right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. There were definitely some moments, and I think they were able to get away with some of the violence directed towards the immortals, obviously, because they're not going to die. So they were able to maybe get a little bit ridiculous and a little over the top, almost humorous in a way, because it's not like they're going to die from it. But but I can agree with that. I think a lot of the action scenes, a lot of a lot of the gunplay and a lot of the action scenes and the way the teams, the whole I'm kind of intrigued about how the films are working, action films anyway, these special ops, black ops, Delta Force, Army type of military films are trying really getting a little bit more accurate with breaching rooms and like a squad or a team going in and like tactically clearing out a room of the bad guys and things of that nature. And I thought this film did an amazing job, and I especially liked it because there's a unique element to it. These immortals have been a team of mercenaries or a team of warriors for centuries, for millennia, and so they know how to work with each other so well that their whole their whole squad tactics were just incredible. And I think they played off of this whole element but yeah, for me, I definitely, I mean, I just enjoyed it. And plus
Yeah.
I love sci-fi. I love action. I love sci-fi. It just hit the nail on the head for me, especially like we were saying, these are unique times. They're kind of tough times, and to just watch something completely outside the norm. That's why I've always been a fan of the Marvel films. On the show, I talk about Marvel and DC and comic book superhero stuff, Star Wars and Star Trek. It's an escape, and I think projects like that are very important.
And I love Star Wars so much. I think it's not even an escape. I think it's a different way to view the world, right? It's not even. I mean, every movie is kind of a translation of reality in in a certain way. And Star Wars has always managed to me to capture kind of this more mysterious angle of life. And maybe that's what fascinates you with the old guard as well. With you mentioned the immortals, and I totally agree. There's like something mystic, something outer worldy, but still, like, aren't we just very mystic people? Like, human beings are so weird in a way, and the way we deal with the crisis and everything, it has something very outwardly. I mean, I'm going a little bit too much into philosophy and all of that, but Star Wars for me has always been a really good way whenever I felt frustrated or a little bit desperate about the world, about
Sure.
things that happened. Star Wars was always not even an escape, but a, a reminder of how I can look at the world as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And um, it's fine if we just delve off onto this subject, but
Oh,
you know,
can I say something about the old guard as well? I have to, I mean, yeah, it's, for me, it's like an action movie and it was very violent and I had to stop it. And I didn't know kind of what to do with it. But what I have to admit, after finishing the movie, I thought a lot about what would I do if I would live forever? You know, where would I, what kind of values would I want to incorporate?
mhm.
Where do I, or what would I fight for?
Sure.
Right? It's and that's kind of, because if you live forever, you have so much time to figure it out and like try different things, but we all don't have as much time. We're not immortal. So like how can we make sure that we live in a way that is mirroring our values?
Mhm.
So that was something that definitely got me thinking.
Absolutely. And so what I'll do is I'll put out a spoiler alert. We can talk a little bit more about it. I'll put out a spoiler for the viewers. If you don't want to get spoiled, you can mute it, you can turn it off. So you raise a great point about it. So what that CIA guy had realized is that everything that they did, they saved one life, and by saving that one life, that person cured polio. That person, they stopped, they decided to assassinate someone, and had they not, that assassinated this one person in the 1930s, 1940s, that person would have invented a nuclear bomb. That had that nuclear bomb been invented, the whole world would have been decimated. Every act that they did kind of branched out into 3 or 4 more great things that other non-immortals did.
Mm.
And so because this woman, Charlize Theron, she played Andromeda, I think her name was, and something like that.
Call her Andy.
But they called her Andy for short, and that's amazing. But yeah, so she chose to fight for good with all her gifts, all her power. She could have chose to rule the planet with an iron fist, but she didn't choose that. She chose to fight for good. She chose to save lives. She chose to defend the weak, and to free slaves, and to do this, that, and the other thing, all in the name of good and what's good and right. And it spread. This goodness spread like a virus. And every time something bad happened, they intervened, and goodness spread. And so, but back to touch upon and also her team.
Yeah.
And so they're all aware that they're the only immortals out there. They're all kind of connected through visions, through dreams, or whatever. And so they're all aware that they're the only ones, and they decided to team up, and they all teamed up, and they all banded to fight for good, to fight for justice, and things of that nature. And but to touch upon another thing, like you said, with Star Wars and how it relates to real life, fiction. I get into a few debates about, like, is there a God? Is there a higher power? Are we at a higher level of consciousness than most animals and things? And I think absolutely. Why would we care about music? Why would we care about art? Why do we? A lot of other animals have just a basic instinct of survival, of protecting offspring, predator versus prey. But there are things that we care about above and beyond the normal animal instincts. Why are we moved by music? Why do we, if there isn't a higher thing, then how did we come then how did we even come up with the idea of a higher thing, whatever that higher plane of existence, that higher consciousness?
Yeah.
How did we even come up with the idea of it if it doesn't exist? Right?
I mean, I kind of like, well, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I wasn't quite happy with the last one, but the idea of that there's a force, that like there's an energy field that connects us all, right? And and that everything is basically energy. It's basically what a lot of quantum physicists are saying, and that's what I kind of believe in, because it's also in line with my scientific beliefs. So call it higher consciousness or not, but this is kind of also probably what you like with the old guard as well, that somehow we are all connected, and somehow it is all connected, and we're all parts of a higher of something bigger than ourselves, and maybe we just represent a part of it, right? Maybe not the whole. We're not incorporating probably the whole possibilities of this, that what this world has to offer, but we are still kind of connected to one and another, and that's kind of a beautiful way, and probably a very healing way to see and look at the world. Because if you really stress the individuality of everyone, then why would you care for something that goes beyond yourself or your family, right? Why would you care about music? Why would you care about art? And that's kind of, there must be, if you care about beauty or harmony, or the good, or something that is beyond yourself, then you have kind of a seed of belief in something higher than yourself. And that's, I think that's the way to go, because otherwise you don't wear masks, you don't care for anything, you don't really care for one and another's well-being, and you just look out for yourself. And who would we be then? Not more than animals, probably.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, couldn't agree with you more. So with that in mind, what would you say is your next agenda? What's your next set of goals for the next 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, even the year, considering, maybe the floodgates, maybe the doors open, maybe the floodgates open and we're back to a semi new normal, but what's on the agenda?
It's a really hard question, because everything is so unpredictable, and the only way I can keep myself sane in a way is by acknowledging that and really roll with whatever happens, being okay with whatever happens. If I'm an immigrant in this country, I'm not an American citizen, I have a green card. So if Trump is getting reelected, for example, and restricts the access of green card holders to the job market, then that's what I have to deal with at that point, right? And I have to be okay with it, no matter how much I love New York and love living here and love the job market here and the people here. I will have to move at that point. So this is a kind of very dark scenario I'm talking about, but it could be a very real scenario depending on what happens in November. So it's planned, I can say, oh, I would love to work on a huge project coming up in the next half of year, or going back to the HBO show, and I would love to work with all my friends again. But then it's dependent on what's going to happen. What I can do is really make sure that I know who I want to be, despite of all the difficult scenarios. What kind of friend I want to be, what kind of daughter, what kind of sister, what kind of person in the film industry, right? And then by defining that and really thinking, reflecting about that, it probably doesn't matter anymore if I work in the US or work in Singapore, or if I work in film or switch my career entirely again. I think these are the values, and these are the core things that one can define now and reflect upon now, because now is the time, we have all the time in the world. And that's what I'm trying to do. It's really hard.
Yeah.
It's something, you really have to dig deep and really think about what you want to do. But it has nothing to do with, oh, I want to buy this new coat, or I want to have this job, or I want to have this car. It's kind of deeper than that. It's who do you want to represent?
No,
what
absolutely.
do you want to stand for?
Yeah, and I think and again, so going way back when we first got hit with this quarantine, and it was take advantage of this time, and you look at the positive, not the negatives. I've got so much free time to spend with my wife and my kid. I've got so much free time to get all the stuff done around the house. Now all the stuff's done around the house. Now we're kind of like doing some special things around the house, and the kid's getting bigger, and the kid's very familiar with us, and and like you said, there were a number of projects that you had already shot in the can. There were a number of passion projects that I had shot in the can. It was like, when am I going to find the time to edit? I'm always bouncing from this gig to that gig. Well, knocked them all out in a month, and now I'm finding ways of finding new little intricate ways of pulling off these production hacks and kind of knocking out a few more passion projects, kind of finding these alternate ways of producing it, alternate ways of telling the story. And me and the wife are constantly in our relationship, communicating, and she might snap at something, I might snap at something, and it's not like, well, I get it. I got to go to work. I'll talk about this later. It's like we have this time to communicate. We have this time to evaluate ourselves and work on the way that we treat each other, so that when it is a busy world again, and we're spending less time with each other, we'll be able to handle those situations.
As you say, it's really a time to foster relationships, connections with one another.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. So that and we're in each other's faces. It's like, work on this and evolve on that and progress this, and so that when we're back at that busy world and we're in and out the door, it's not snapping at each other. It's way more patience. It's way more, kind of retraining ourselves to deal with something a different, better way.
Yeah.
So that when we're spending less time with each other, we're not stewing all day. She's home and I'm at work, or I'm home and she's at work, and we're not there with each other, and we're just stewing and just getting more and more pissed off the more we think about that thing that happened. We've already trained and like retrained and re-evolved ourselves on how we deal with X, Y, and Z. So so with that being said, what are your views on the new normal? What is maybe a vision? What is something that we can look forward to, or we should be, in your eyes, something we should look forward to, or something we should be cautious of, as far as what we should expect of this new normal?
I mean, all right, there's a more probably pessimistic way how the world will be. I think, especially in the US, it's a really, really difficult moment in this time, with all the uprises and the virus, and getting that under control. It will take a while, right? I think there will be more requirements how we open up the economy, and all of that. I don't know what kind of rules the politicians will come up with, but as we have seen after 9/11, for example, the way we travel, this is all from after 9/11, like liquids and all the screenings and stuff. And even though, for example, the liquid thing, it's not helpful at all. Like, every chemist knows that you could, it doesn't mean anything to screen all of that. However, once the rules are established, it's really difficult to roll back on them. So they will just stay in our everyday life. And I think the moment politicians come up with rules, like, well, the mask is one thing, but I'm sure there will be other things, how we eat at restaurants or how we go on concerts and all of that. Once these rules are established, it's hard to roll back, and it will change and alter our experience in our everyday life forever, or for the many years to come, I would say. And I'm kind of cautious about that. And I'm, yeah, a little bit sad that we probably lose a lot of the way we used to live in the years to come. But then the travel thing, I'm a little bit sad too, because I am very guilty of taking a plane for a weekend to Berlin or to Athens, or go back for a week to Switzerland to see my parents. And it was horrible for the footprint of this world, but at the same time, I really enjoyed my jet set life, and that's definitely over for me, at least. And I think for a lot of other people as well, just because we can't afford it anymore. It's really a hassle traveling, at least at the moment. And maybe people will still travel, but more in an old-fashioned way. Like, once you travel, you stay there maybe for a month or two, and then, you know, it's gonna change. So the new normal is kind of incorporating all of that and still make it a beautiful life, I hope.
Way more organic, way more micro
Yes,
kind
very
of
micro,
system.
maybe more community based.
Yep.
You know, not like, I mean, I'm such a fan of small dinner parties, for example. I think that will be something that people go back to more often, instead of going to concerts or theaters. However, yeah, it would be, or small theaters maybe coming up again. Yeah,
I think I think generally, and yeah, you raise a good point there. I think generally, what needs to be done as far as, you know, sports, auditoriums, stadiums, airplane seatings, just all the seatings, is every other row is just going to get taken out.
you know what? But I just talked to a friend who traveled to Portugal, to Lisbon, the other day, and he said it was the first plane out of New York after a while, and every single seat was booked. So you were really close, and you weren't allowed to remove your masks. So that was astonishing to me. I also thought that they would only book every second seat, which was not the case.
No, I think they need to physically remove every other row.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the I think they physically need to remove every other row, and then remove, within the rows that they keep, remove every other seat. So remove every odd numbered row, and then within the even numbered rows, remove every odd number seat. Now you've got your social distancing, and then you can have a fully booked plane, because there's going to be that space. It's only going to be, I think like 40% of your capacity that it once was, but that's going to have to be the new normal. All the stadiums, all the auditoriums, all the theaters.
You know what? To answer your question, what the new normal would be, maybe it's more back to quality. Remember, for example, the time, you know, in the 60s, 70s, where everyone would smoke, and then you would go on a plane and you had real silverware and like a napkin, not like this plastic shit. And
yeah,
no, it's like, maybe there's some appreciation to go back to the old school, to the really quality. Like, you don't do as much as we used to. Like, you don't buy as much clothes as you're used to now. So just reducing everything to what you need and what you really want. And at the same time, increase the quality of whatever you're doing. Like, for example, I just came back from a brunch with a friend, and that was the first brunch for 4 months, or maybe even more, ever since the lockdown. And we were sitting outside, and it was such a treat, you know. Usually I'm like, oh yes, that's another brunch in a weekend, but this one was really special, and we were sitting way longer than usual. the restaurants are nowadays, like what I see, you don't have to rush through your eating and then they want you to pay and leave right away. It's just more, there's more space to experience things, and maybe that's a good thing about the new normal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, any last points? Any last points you want to, last bit of advice you want to put out to our viewers?
Last points. I think really I would love that, people could reflect on their values more and what they stand for, and hopefully when the country is opening up again, that we come back as a better self and with a better attitude, and hopefully that will influence the way we live and we work and we interact with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Kim, do you have any socials you want to, any plugs, any links you want to put out there?
No, actually not. But please watch I Know This Much Is True. It's such an awesome series. I think Derek C. and friends did an awesome job. And I'm just at awe how it all worked out. Mark Ruffalo played a double role as a twin. And I think
Oh, wow.
it's really worth watching. It's heavy, but it's worth watching.
So I Know This Much Is True. I Know This Much Is True on HBO limited series, Mark Ruffalo.
Yep.
Awesome. I'll be sure to check it out. I'll find a way to check it out. Probably borrow somebody's HBO pass or something like that. But Kim, it was great. It was great having you on the show. Thank you so much. A lot of great insights, a lot of new information. So I took a lot of notes. So thanks again, and my viewers, like, subscribe, share, comment, ring that bell for notifications, and check us out next time.
Thank you.